So welcome back. Now that we've covered the basic language of the book and its title and the concepts of shadow and cultural givens, I'd like to take a look at chapter 3 of the book, which is the first of 5 chapters that addresses specific events or issues in American history where shadow occurs. And again, those 5 chapters include the history of women, the history of Native Americans, the history of African Americans, the Vietnam War, and post 9/11 wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so today I'd just like to look at this chapter 3, which is the history of women. And the title of the chapter is Fear of the Feminine and the Subjugation of Women, Getting Their Feet from Off of Our Necks. And we'll spend several episodes of this podcast delving into that chapter. Suffice it to say, to begin, with this episode, the founding fathers, for all of the brilliance that they put into the framing documents, basically, and for all of the cultural givens they had that didn't recognize non-land-owning white men as equals. In other words, eliminating women, Native Americans, and African Americans from the rights granted in the Constitution and its amendments. They saw fit not to include their mothers, their daughters, and their spouses as recipients, deserving recipients of the very rights that they granted to themselves and others who were like them. And we're going to see that that's a perspective, a given that follows American history beyond just the founding fathers, right up to our current time, where we still think that certain human beings don't deserve the same rights. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. This one is specifically about the history of women and why men then and even now have a certain fear of the feminine, which is played out in a fear of women. But those, again, are 2 different things. The feminine being that feminine energy of relationship, of mercy, of compassion, of embrace, as opposed to the more individualistic, justice-based masculine energy, and why men tend to be afraid of that. And that fear played itself out, and they were ignorant of it as well, but that fear and that ignorance played itself out in an arrogance that saw women as being lesser than or unequal to men. So that's the overview of the chapter. And I'm not going to get into any specific details now because I've already rambled enough giving you the basic overview. But in the next several episodes, we'll take some specific examples of the history of women in the United States and see, while progress has definitely been made, we still have quite a long way to go. So I look forward to seeing you the next time. Thanks for tuning in.